Hey everyone, it's actually Jeb Bush, and welcome back to another episode of the offseason on NBA SoRare. In this series of videos, we're highlighting players that we think might be flying under the radar, take a big jump, or might have a massive increase in usage because of their situation going into the season. So far, we've talked about the two teams that are the most obvious sellers going into this season. But today I want to talk about a team that is one of the biggest buyers. And believe it or not, I actually think it provides a golden opportunity for us going into the season. Now, really quick before jumping into it, I want to just kind of review the basic rules we've kind of established in the first two videos, and that is this non-financial financial advice. When we mention a player in this video that we think will overperform and have a lot of value during the NBA SoRare season, that does not mean you should immediately go and buy that player. It is currently the off season, which means plenty of people who are really into SoRare, like myself, aren't logging in every single day and buying and selling cards. And since listings on the marketplace expire, we are not seeing the volume of circulation that we will during the regular season. So a lot of these cards are a bit inflated in price. The best way to approach this, in my opinion, is to make a watch list of the players that you're interested and maybe set up some price alerts using SoRare data. And if you see a super aggressive undercutting, or you think you can make an offer that'll get accepted, that's a bit of a low ball, I think that's the way to go. There's plenty of time between now and the start of the season to pick a spot where you're going to pick up that player for a good price. Also, we have to remember that these players will get additional circulation as Series 2 rolls out. So just remember, we have plenty of time between now and the start of the season, and even the first few weeks of the season, where we might get a bit of a supply shock. There will be plenty of opportunities to pick up the players you want. So there's absolutely no need to make any impulsive decisions here. With that out of the way, let's talk about the team that has gone all in this season, the Phoenix Suns. This year, the Suns made a trade to put Bradley Beal alongside Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, creating an absolute juggernaut, at least on paper. And at first, you might look at that starting lineup and wonder why we're looking at the Suns at all. I mean, there is only one basketball in a game, and Booker, KD, and Beal are all going to want it at all times. It's going to be enough trouble for DeAndre Ayton to even get the touches he wants, much less anyone else that we might be looking at. However, I would say with the Suns' current roster, they are incredibly top heavy. And on top of that, I think it's fair to say that their three biggest stars, which are Booker, KD, and Beal, are all at least somewhat injury prone. I don't personally see a world where at least two out of the three have a significant amount of time taken off during the regular season, and even some level of load management, because the Suns really only care about the playoffs at this point. So they need to make sure that Booker and KD and Beal are healthy for when it matters, not during these regular season games. Because of all the above, I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities for a myriad of Suns bench players to get serious minutes during the regular season. Now, we don't know if these players will consistently have opportunities every NBA SoRare game week, but I definitely think there will be plenty of opportunities sprinkled throughout where, every 2 or 3 game weeks, this bench player has a real opportunity to put up a number way above their cap. So we're going to talk about 4 brand new Suns players this season that I think will have plenty of opportunities to be real SoRare gems and kind of be in an ideal situation to squeeze them into certain lineups and have them be a real contributor and difference maker. Now, just in general, beyond this video, I actually encourage you to go through the Suns' entire roster. Out of all the players that were on the Suns 2021 team that went to the NBA Finals, I believe there are 2 players left, which is really crazy when you think about it. A team that went to the finals has Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton from that team and absolutely no one else. So once again, I encourage you to take a look at the team roster and familiarize yourself with kind of the depth chart, who's going to be backing up who might have a little more opportunity at their position, et cetera, et cetera. But there are 4 players that I want to highlight today, and the first player I want to talk about is Drew Eubanks. Now, if you're familiar with my videos at all, you know that Drew Eubanks last year was an NBA SoRare staple for us. And if we take a look at the price chart real quick, you'll see that we did very well with Drew Eubanks. Both playing him in some lineups that I remember got me a couple of high placements and selling him for a profit consistently. As you can see, I think here are two purchases here. And we sold them both here for a decent increase. And there's must be another purchase or something that we had before, and we sold them up here for 15. Drew Eubanks last year I thought was such a great play, and it proved to be an awesome play both on the marketplace and in NBA SoRare for the whole season. Granted, Drew Eubanks definitely wasn't a player you could just throw in every single week, but he was a player that when the opportunity presented itself, he really delivered. And I think that's going to be the common theme with all these players today on the Suns. So let's take a look at his stats. We got a pretty normal circulation here. We got a pretty favorable 3-day average price. I like $4. Now, we do have a cap of 30 here. If you remember our last video about the Trailblazers, you'll remember that the Trailblazers at a certain point shut down all their stars like Lillard and Simmons and Jeremy Grant and started to aggressively tank. So as a result, a player like Drew Eubanks got a lot more run here. So Eubanks is a great example of a player that you might not want to purchase before the season starts, and you might actually want to wait a week or two in so this cap dips down a bit. Because I don't think there's any world where you're starting Drew Eubanks at a 30 cap. You know, he's better to be started when he's below 20. Now, let's scroll down to the price graph. We already kind of highlighted that we've been on the Drew Eubanks train for a while. But I want to take a look at this and kind of see what we're working with. As you can see, Drew Eubanks has kind of been on a steady decline here, and you can see people sniping him for under $3 pretty consistently, which is really great to see. I mean, under $3, I think, is a great price for Eubanks. We can see a little bit of a pump right here. I would assume this is after he signed with the Suns. There are a couple people who got a little bit excited and maybe kind of scooped up one or two of him. But like I said, I mean, Eubanks, there is no rush to get him before the season starts. As you can see, I currently don't own a Eubanks. But I think having a Eubanks early in the season is pretty crucial because I think there will just be so many opportunities for him to put up some great numbers. We can take a look at his scores to kind of see how that pans out. As you can see, near the end of the season, Drew Eubanks was putting up some crazy numbers here. We have a 38, a 40, a 55. We even see earlier in the season when the Trailblazers weren't tanking, we did get a 44 from Drew Eubanks. I mean, that's really great to see that he has that ceiling capability because he is a guy that can score. He's got a decent bag in the post. He's a guy that's going to get you some rebounds, maybe get a block or two, maybe get his hand in the passing lane. He's a well-rounded player for what he is, which is a very solid bench player. Let's go ahead and take a look at these scores and just kind of see what we're working with. So here, this 54, which was his highest of the season, we got 23 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks, 2 assists. So I don't see a world where Eubanks is typically getting 5 blocks a game or close to that, but he is a guy that can get, 1 or 2 blocks. He can put up double digits in scoring. He can put up double digits in rebounds. He can hit a 3 here and there. He's not the worst passer. He can definitely get an assist on an outlet pass, or finding the open man for 3. I do think Drew Eubanks is just a solid pickup. And I actually think Eubanks is in a better position to contribute more often to your NBA SoRare lineup. DeAndre Ayton, most likely, based on his history, will miss a week here, miss a week there. Once again, the Suns are purely focused on the playoffs, so they will be load managing everyone that's important. So we do kind of get this perfect storm where Eubanks is putting up these low score teen numbers, even below 10 numbers, but then, DeAndre Ayton gets in foul trouble or DeAndre Ayton takes a day or two off, and he's going to drop a 30 plus, a 40 plus for you. Also, one final point I want to make about Eubanks' upside is the fact that he is a pretty decent defensive player, and the Suns are a hyper offensive team. If they can get a guy in there to come off the bench and put up solid defense and hopefully get a couple stops so the Suns can close out some games on the offensive side, I think that bodes well for Eubanks. Additionally, because of the gravity that Booker, KD, and Beal are going to have, it's going to open up so many opportunities for Eubanks to get offensive rebounds and putbacks, which is an ideal situation for an NBA SoRare player with what we hope is going to be a low cap. Yeah, I'm very high on Eubanks this year. I think he'll get plenty of opportunities, and I think because of the unique situation, he will have a low cap going into those opportunities, making him an optimal play a lot of the time. Now, the next player going down the list I want to talk about is Eric Gordon. But really quick, I do want to highlight that I do think Bates Diop is an interesting play. You should definitely look into his stats and kind of see what he did with the Spurs. I think he can fill a somewhat similar role with the Suns. And Jordan Goodwin, I think, is a very interesting play because just the fact that the Suns don't have a real point guard. Now, I know it's been said that Beal will probably assume that point guard position, but there might be some interesting opportunities for Goodwin to get some extended minutes just as a pure facilitator. So let's go ahead and take a look at Eric Gordon. When Eric Gordon got signed by the Suns, I think most people who knew basketball were, one, shocked that he took such a low number, maybe because he really wants to get a ring at this point in his career. And they were also very impressed with the Suns, and it instantly increased the Suns' chances of winning a ring. And that's mainly because of the fact that Gordon is a guy that can create his own shot and can get you buckets late in a game when you need it. I do think he'll be a pretty key piece on the Suns, and sitting at a average price of below $3 is almost laughable. I cannot believe we haven't seen a massive pump on Eric Gordon, and he's sitting closer to, $7 to $10. And we can see here on the price chart real quick that there was a pump, but it went right back down. Okay, so pretty normal circulation. We take a look, and he has a cap of 17, which is absolutely ideal. I feel like Gordon is a player here that might be worth throwing into that week 1 NBA SoRare lineup. Such a low cap. Gordon is definitely capable of putting up a pretty high SoRare score and getting real meaningful minutes. Once he was released by the Rockets and was signed by the Clippers, he got plenty of minutes playing for a pretty deep team in the Clippers. It really never was an issue on that team for him to get minutes, and the Suns aren't nearly as deep. Like I said, Eric Gordon is going to be a key piece of this team. So I think he will get even more minutes, and he will put up even higher scores. Let's take a quick look at the price graph. I know we kind of already highlighted things. Like we said, we saw this pump on the signing, but it dipped right back down. I mean, people are getting him below $2, which is just nuts to me. After this video, I will be buying an Eric Gordon for sure. So just want to be transparent there. Now, the reason I wanted to come back to this price graph was because unlike a lot of players that we have taken a look at so far and that we look at in general, Eric Gordon does not really have any pumps or spikes throughout last season. We can see little ones here and there where he got close to like $10, $12, but there's not some time that there was almost a squeeze on him as everyone thought he was a must-have play for an optimal lineup. I do think there's a real possibility that changes this season because of the role that Eric Gordon is assuming. And while it's a little bit of a risk, obviously, because we don't know what Eric Gordon will look like on the Suns until we actually see them play, it's such a minimal risk at $2 that I don't know why you wouldn't make sure you at least have one in case there is a possible squeeze and he's an optimal play, going into week 2, week 3 on NBA SoRare. Let's go ahead and take a look at his scores real quick. We can see that Gordon has been pretty consistent throughout, not putting up any like crazy ceiling games, but also not putting up too many duds. So far, we can see a lot of 30s, a lot of mid 30s, a couple 40s here and there, but nothing too special. However, we have to remember that for the first half of the season, Eric Gordon was on the Rockets, and that team was a complete dumpster fire. And then he went to the Clippers, which was a very deep team, and he was needed kind of for one or two specific things. And they got Westbrook as well, who took up a lot of usage and a lot of minutes. Now, once again, the flip side of things is that Booker, KD, and Beal are all typically pretty heavy usage guys. So there's definitely no guarantee that Eric Gordon starts the season off hot. However, I think as the season goes on, the team develops and the players figure out their roles, I think Eric Gordon will play a pivotal part in the Suns' really core group. The great news here is that, like we said, Eric Gordon's $2. So if you buy an Eric Gordon and he fizzles out and he goes to $1, I don't think anyone's stressing out too much. So I think it's a risk well worth taking, and it's something that you could probably throw in an offer in today and get one or two Eric Gordons in your collection. All right, the next player I wanted to take a look at was a very recent signing for the Suns, and that is no other than Bol Bol. Now, Bol Bol is a very interesting player this year, especially after the fact that Gilbert Arenas just came out and called Bol Bol lazy and said he had a bad attitude, which makes this a little bit of a riskier play, possibly. However, I think Bol Bol has such an unreal ceiling that it is just absolutely worth taking this risk. All right, so let's take a look here. We've got pretty normal circulation. We've got a floor price of under $7, which is not terrible, maybe not ideal. We'll look at the price graph and kind of figure that out in a bit. We've got a cap of 13, which is awesome going into week one. I really, really love that. The one caveat would be I really don't know how much Bol Bol will play at the very beginning of the Suns season, at least, because, the Suns have Aiden, and I would think that Eubanks would be the second one coming off the bench. And I think that's something that's probably really worth watching as the season approaches. I would definitely go for whoever the backup center is, whether it's Bol Bol or Eubanks. Let's go ahead and take a look at his price graph here. We can see a couple little spikes, which is always encouraging to see. And we can see that people were paying, over $35 for Bol Bol. So this wasn't a pump from, $5 to 10. Is a pretty significant pump, especially considering we can see he was going below 20 at one point. And even down here, auctions were going for close to $10. So that's over a 3x that we saw when Bol Bol kind of started to really perform at the start of the season. And we'll kind of see that when we take a look at the scores. Now, if we take a further look in the season, we'll see that Bol Bol just absolutely fell off the face of the earth when it comes to value, going for like around $2. And I'm sure when we take a look at the scores, it'll kind of correlate and we'll see exactly why that's the case. But we have seen a bit of a bump since he was cut from the Magic and then consequently signed to the Suns. And that's because the Suns, like we have said, don't have the greatest depth. So Bol Bol will definitely get a chance to earn a spot and earn some minutes playing on that team. Now let's take a look at Bol Bol's scores. Now we can see early on in the season, Bol Bol was just dropping 40s every game week. 47, 44, 47, 44, with a couple of duds in between. But yeah, he was definitely on a roll early in the season. I remember when this was happening and he suddenly was considered a pretty solid SoRare play. But as we can see, as the season went on, we had some DMPs. We had a lot of low scores here. And then he finished the season out with a bunch of DMPs as well. So we can see why Bol Bol's value kind of fell off a cliff here. But me personally, I'm more focused on the beginning of the season, kind of seeing where Bol Bol's ceiling is. Like that's something we talk about a lot here. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the scores. Bol Bol is a guy that can really do a lot of things for you. Bol Bol can hit threes. He's going to get double-digit rebounds pretty consistently. He's a guy that can get anywhere from 1 to like 7 blocks. I mean, he's just so tall and so long. He can get blocks out on the three-point line, which is extra special. I just think there are a lot of ways for Bol Bol to score here. And the Suns, who are desperate to add depth and defense and length, I think it just provides a real opportunity for Bol Bol to kind of reinvent himself here and really take this opportunity to be part of a winning basketball team. So one last thing, going back to his price, unlike Eric Gordon, who was $2, I'm not rushing to go and buy a Bol Bol today. I don't think $7 is a bad price for Bol Bol, but looking at the price chart, we know that he can go lower, and there's a pretty decent amount of time between now and the start of the season. And it's hard to tell if Bol Bol will really get a lot of opportunities at the beginning of the season. Like I said before, I think monitoring the Suns' backup center going into the season will be crucial. Whether it's going to be Bol Bol or Drew Eubanks, I think will really determine who's the better buy. But like I said, I don't think you need to rush out to buy a Bol Bol. I would just keep an eye on that price. And if you see someone aggressively undercutting, maybe go ahead and snipe that. All right. So the last player that I want to take a look at on the Suns roster played with Kevin Durant last year and followed him from the Nets to the Suns. And that is Yuta Watanabe. Now, Yuta, he has a pretty normal circulation. He has a 2-week average of $2.50, which is pretty close to the floor. I love to see that. He also has a cap of 8, which is incredible and might actually make him a must play for week 1 on NBA SoRare. Now, if we take a look at his price graph, we can see that Yuta had quite a few spikes here and there, getting close to $20 at times. Here, yeah, almost. He's at 19, and he was kind of sitting at the $10 mark for quite a while before absolutely just falling into the gutter and being worth $1 or even less. And a big reason that was the case was because early in the season, when KD and Kyrie were playing on the Nets, Yuta was on fire from 3. He could hit absolutely everything. He was putting up some pretty great scores. And we'll see in a second how this price graph correlates with his SoRare scores. But the point to take away is that Yuta was absolutely deadly from 3. And the big reason why is because the gravity that KD had and Kyrie had, driving and bringing doubles or getting players to kind of cheat off their guy, gave Yuta so much open space, and he hit those open shots. So the question is, what's better than Kyrie and KD pulling guys away from you? And the answer just might be Devin Booker, KD, and Bradley Beal. I think similar to Eric Gordon, Yuta has a real opportunity to be part of that core Suns group. And I think he is going to see the most open shots he's ever seen in his career. And if last year is an indication of anything, I think Yuta could put up some serious SoRare scores, even right away as the season starts, because it doesn't take a lot of chemistry to necessarily stand in the corner and wait for someone to pass you the ball after they're getting doubled. So Yuta's value on SoRare will ultimately come down to whether he can return to form. Now, let's take a look at his scores, and we can kind of see how that relates to his price. So to start off the season, him dropping this 23, this 33, and this 27 were awesome because his cap was crazy low. And we can see throughout the season when he was healthy, because that was another issue, Yuta definitely struggled with some injuries. He could put up a 20 or a 30 semi-consistently. Now we can see here later on, this is exactly why Yuta's price absolutely tanked, because between the injuries, the DNPs, and just the ineffective shooting that plagued him once KD left, he kind of became unplayable once again on SoRare. But ultimately, like I said, I think Yuta will be a key role player for the Suns and will at least get the opportunity to return to form. Whether he does or not, that's where you taking that risk is going to come into play. However, at $2, I don't think that's much of a risk. So I'd say fire away. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and end the video there. If you made it this far, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Please feel free to leave a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It's something that's relatively easy that you can do that really helps me a lot. Also, feel free to leave a comment below and let me know what you think about these players that I've highlighted. Am I wrong about any of them? Is there something I missed? Or is there a player either on the Suns or another team that is a must-have going into this season? Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next video. Please clap.